Okay, y'all, we're going to get started. I want to honor your time. I'm sure we'll get some others popping in here in the next few minutes. Welcome to this restorative class workshop webinar, whatever you want to call it. This is a part of my summer of self-care offerings that I'm doing. And I kind of started this process, started thinking about what I'm calling self-care. And I've been seeing a lot with the people that I work with one-on-one, that folks are resting, but not recovering, not kind of rejuvenating, restoring, like all of these kinds of things. And last time I had a free session a couple weeks ago, and we talked about how zoning out and rest are not the same thing. And just because you're still doesn't mean you're resting. Connecting with ease is a pretty important part of what I would say is true rest. And the mind needs rest too. It's not just the body. Certainly, things can be restful in a different way, like binging some show or reading a good book or things like that. But it's not rest in the sense of holistically. And so I just wanted to check in. If you would please type into the chat your name, where you're from, and what's your stress level 1 to 10. And if chat is not accessible, feel free to come off mute. Melissa is in Boston, and 8. Yeah, that's pretty high. That's pretty high. Anybody else? Hillary is in Austin, maybe a 6. Happy to be at yoga and watch the World Cup game. Totally fair. Shannon, new to Austin, 5 to 6. Okay, so mix. When I taught the previous class in this series, I was at a 7, which for me is really, really high. Much, much better today. I think, gosh, I don't know. Today I'm like at a 3, which is more my normal. So that feels really good. But I work a lot with people one-on-one, and I always ask this question, and it's really common for it to be 7 or higher. So I consider anything below 7 a win, and then anything 3 or lower is just like great. So it's just something to think about. Maybe you're in a particularly stressful season. Maybe you're at your normal, like this is your normal. So that's something to think about too. I just want to, Shannon was at my class today. That's why you're at 5 or 6, Shannon. So I just wanted to touch really quickly before we head into the practice at this idea of a burnout loop. So what can happen is that we need rest. And so we get still, we try to rest, and then it's difficult or it's uncomfortable because the mind doesn't like it. It's not familiar. The mind, keeps racing or whatever it does. And the body resists. Like there's holding, there's bracing, there's tension. We resist the rest. And so we try to make it productive almost. It's like there's effort involved in us resting. It's like we want it to be productive. So that kind of can work against us. And then it creates this cycle where it's like we're proving to ourselves that we can't rest. I just can't rest. I can't be still. When really it's like building a muscle. You just have to learn it and then repeat it, and it gets better over time. It gets easier and easier. Deb, we were just checking in if you would like to put your name and where you're from and your stress level 1 to 10 in the chat, or if it's easier to come off mute, that's fine too. Melissa is an 8, Hillary was a 6, and Shannon's a 5 or 6, and I'm a 3 today. I'm having a good day.
I'll just say it. That's easier. I'm Deb. I'm in the Dallas area, and I would say I'm actually kind of leveled down on stress. So I'd say about a five.
Okay, so 5 is good for you.
Five is really good for
Okay.
me.
Good. Yeah, we were just talking to you about how numbers differ, right? So for me, 3 is a really good number. 7 would be really, really high for me, but it depends. Like everybody has a different baseline and different life. So depending on what season of life you're in, what's happening. Um, 2 weeks ago, I was fluctuating between 7 and 10. I was in a really lots of life things were happening, and then things have now settled, and so I've made my way back to 3. Which is really kind of the goal. The goal isn't that we would all just be at a level 1 all the time forever, because that's not realistic. The goal is that you meet the demands of life, and then your system can find its way back to a more calm, restful state. And the way that your system can do that is because you've practiced it, because it has a felt sense of that and knows how to get back there. So I think that's all I'm going to say to kind of introduce the practice. Any questions before we get into the practice? Okay.
What do we need today for props, Christina?
I was just about to get to that. You need not a block, a bolster or equivalent. So a pillow, cushion, some kind of something that can support you. And then a couple of blankets, or if you don't have blankets handy, a towel or two would work. And a comfy place to practice. Okay. Hillary's friend signed up and is momentarily. Okay, so we'll wait here just another minute, but while we're doing that, you can grab your props, make your way to your practice space. All right. So we're going to begin with a little bit of a check-in. I highly recommend sitting on something, a blanket or your cushion or whatever it is. And you're welcome to lie down. You don't have to be seated, whatever is more comfortable for you. And once you find a pretty comfortable way of being in your body, soften your gaze or allow your eyes to close. And these numbers that you've given that represent your stress level, they have an expression in the body, in the breath, in the mind. So notice what that is. Notice how your body is. And how do you know that you're a 5 or a 6 or an 8 or a 3? What does it feel like? And then notice just for a moment the body breathing. The body and the breath don't lie. So the breath can tell us a lot about our state. So notice where you feel the breath and how it feels. You might also notice where you don't feel the breath, where maybe there is some bracing or tension or holding. And then if you do notice any of that bracing or holding, just invite it to soften. It may or may not soften, but the invitation is on the table. And then notice your mind, the snow globe of the mind with any kind of thoughts or emotions or things that are spinning around. And notice them as an observer. So not getting caught up in them, just noticing, oh, so this is what a 5 or a 6 or an 8 or a 3 is like mentally, emotionally. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. It's just information. Take 2 more breaths here. And then blink your eyes open. Open them a little wide and take a look around your space. Maybe notice light or color or texture or something beautiful. And then we're going to get ready to move into our first shape. For this one, we're going to be lying prone, which is belly down. And at least one of you, I think, doesn't like lying this way. So I'm going to offer an alternative after I show you this one. You're going to take your cushion, your bolster, your pillow. It's going to go vertically on your practice space. And then some kind of blanket or cushion that you can use for your head. You might also take, if you have a second blanket or towel below, unless you're practicing on a soft surface, and then this part is less necessary. So the idea is that you're going to lay down over the cushion with your knees resting on the floor or the surface that you're on, and your pelvis and torso on the cushion, and then your head supported with the arms up overhead, giving enough space for your head and neck for you to breathe. So if lying on the belly is not comfortable or just not what you're looking for this evening, the alternative would be to lay on your back with your head and neck supported. Knees bent, and the heels are going to be on your mat or on the surface that you're on, and the balls of your feet on a blanket. You could here, if you're in this position, use your cushion as a gentle weight over your hips. So whichever position you have made your way into, take care to notice all the little fine tuning, the small things, adjustments that could be made to be more comfortable. And give yourself permission to make them if you know what they are and you're able to make them. And then once you get comfortable, notice the movement of breath. Notice the breath in the back body. Notice the breath in the front body. You might notice breathing into the side body. And then here, just create a soft container within which the breath can move. And when the mind kind of pulls your attention away, you can just bring it gently back to the breath, to the felt sense of support. And we'll be here for a couple of minutes. Allow your breath to deepen. And you're welcome to linger if being here feels really good. If you are ready to transition, for those who are laying on your belly, you're going to take your hands into a position where you could press yourself up. It might feel nice to rest back in a child's pose for a couple of breaths. If you are laying on your back, then maybe remove any props, hug your knees in, find some gentle movement or roll to one side. And then in either case, make your way into a comfortable seat just to take a couple of breaths and notice. Often, what happens is that as we get still, we notice. We notice underlying tension or just things. So, if you feel like you need to take some movement after that, rolling the shoulders, or even like waking up from a nap kind of movements, do whatever you need to do to kind of reset before we set up in the second shape. For the second shape, the bolster or pillow or cushion is going to go at the top of your practice space with a blanket or some kind of something to use to support your head and neck. And then if you have a second blanket, you can do a couple of different things with it. One is you can lay it out, especially if you're on a hard surface and all you have is a yoga mat. Highly recommend laying your blanket out across your mat. You could also cover with it or use it as a weight across the hips again. So for this shape, we're going to be lying back over the bolster, and I just want to name that. I don't think I'm the only one, but if you lay back, you're in this little back bend. Well, if you have a lot of junk in your trunk here, it can feel really nice after you lay back to lift your hips up and kind of push down your hip tissue away from the low back. Kind of depends on what you're lying back on. Options here for the legs. Definitely take your legs wider than the hips, maybe to the width of a yoga mat, and just allow them to rest. If that doesn't feel good on your back or anywhere in your body, then you could bend your knees. If you choose bending the knees, I recommend using a blanket over the knees to hold the legs, just as a gentle weight. And then make sure whatever is supporting under the head and neck comes all the way down to your shoulders. So it gets the whole neck. Arms are comfortably out to the side. And then again, making any little adjustments that you need to make to be comfortable. And then here, soften the jaw. Notice the movement of breath in and down, up and out. So this kind of vertical movement down towards the base of the torso and then up and out through the nose or mouth if you have congestion. And in the previous shape, we really focused on like breathing into the back or the front or the sides. Here, I just want you to feel that up and down movement of the breath on the inside. Maybe you can sense that there's this massaging of the abdomen, of the heart, a gentle pressure change at the pelvic floor. And if you are sensitive to it, you might even feel a gentle shift down the inside of the legs towards the feet. Soften the jaw, the muscles around the eyes. Tongue resting comfortably in the mouth. We'll be here for a few minutes. Allow your breath to deepen. Noticing how it feels to be still, resting, or maybe quote unquote resting, depending on your experience. If your legs are out straight, it might feel nice to take a full body stretch. If your legs are bent, it might feel nice to windshield wiper the legs a little side to side. And then in either case, eventually roll to one side, press yourself up, and then rest in a seat for a breath or two, just noticing if there's anything that you need to do here, maybe a little seated cat-cow or some circles with the body, just whatever you need. Our next shape is another choose your own adventure shape. Two versions of a similar inversion. The first one is taking the bolster kind of back where we had it at the beginning, kind of right in the middle of the mat with a blanket overhead. And then I'm just going to demo this real quick and then show you the other option so you can choose and begin to set up. So this one is more of a focus on the back bend. You're going to be back bending over the top of your cushion with your arms overhead or out wide and maybe a blanket to hold the knees. That's one option. The other option is to take the bolster horizontally on the mat with the pelvis supported by the bolster. And then same option, arms can be overhead, out wide. And this one is just a little gentler, I think. If you choose the vertical bolster, the back bendy option, just take care. Often when I see people in this shape, they have the bolster too high. Make sure that your shoulders are like barely touching the blanket or the surface beneath you. And if you have a petite frame or a particularly chunky bolster or support, then you might need to use folded blankets instead. Like if it just feels like too big of a back bend or too much of an inversion, then you can take blankets folded in the shape of a bolster and use those underneath you. And just as before, once you get set up in the basic essence of the shape, check in, notice if there's any small adjustment that you might make that would make it more comfortable. It might be covering your eyes with the edge of a blanket or shifting your position slightly. And then here, notice how this vertical movement of the breath is upside down. So when you inhale, the breath is moving up toward the knees and then down towards the nose. And energetically, there's this really beautiful path, like from the knees down to the pelvis and belly area. Really soften around the hips, soften the pelvic floor, soften the belly. And then from the belly down to the chest, soften the collarbone area, the shoulders, the rib cage. From the chest down to the throat, soften the jaw, the eyes. And then notice from this kind of center, from the chest, heart space out through the arms towards the hands. Notice the spaces between your fingers. And then just connect with the felt sense of the rise and fall of breath. And we'll be here for a few minutes. Become aware again of the body breathing. Gently deepening the breath and maybe bringing wiggles into the fingers or toes. If you are in the back bendy position, there's no graceful way to exit this shape. You could scoot up in the direction of your head if you have space, or just roll to the side, remembering that you're elevated. If your hips are propped up, you could lift the hips and slide out your cushion. And either way, make your way into a seat, taking a moment to notice, taking any movements that you need based on what you're noticing. The next shape will be our longest one. So take care to get any wiggles out that need to be out. You will want some sort of support for your head and neck in this last shape. Your bolster pillow cushion is going to be under the knees this time. And when I say under the knees, really, it's kind of under the thighs so that your heels rest on the surface. You could, if you wanted, if you have a yoga bolster and you want to prop it up, you could slide a yoga block underneath, or even a rolled blanket works really nice so that the curved edge rests behind the knees. You could cover with a blanket here. Certainly, if you're barefoot, cover your feet with socks or with a blanket. You could place a blanket or something as a gentle weight across the hips here. Covering the eyes can be really nice with maybe a shirt or a scarf or something of that nature. As before, take care to support your head and neck all the way down to the shoulders. And then arm position can really be whatever you like. Just make sure your elbows are out away from the body so the breath can move all the way up toward the armpits. And then just check in. Make any little tiny adjustments that you need to, keeping in mind that we'll be here a little longer. Allowing the breath to settle, the mind to settle. And then whatever amount of ease you've been able to access thus far, drop into that if possible. And maybe even if possible, that is a threshold, and you can drop even beneath that into this kind of space of deep rest and stillness and quiet that's always present, that's untouched by external circumstance. And feel your body yielding to gravity, muscle pulling away from bone towards the earth. Just resting, held, supported. And we'll be here for a handful of minutes. Become aware again of the body breathing. And give yourself a lot of space to slowly come back to present moment awareness and surface level awareness. Breath deepening. When you feel ready for movement, it might feel nice to open and close the jaw or the palms of the hands, or take your gaze side to side. It might feel nice to move the arms and legs or take a full body stretch. Eventually, hugging in of knees, any last movements that you want before maybe rocking side to side, rolling to one side, pausing for a breath, using your top arm to press yourself up, allowing your head and neck to be the very last things to come up. And then when you do, sitting in any way that's comfortable, doing a post practice check in, noticing the felt sense of what's present in your body, how things have shifted, noticing how the breath is moving now and where you feel it now compared to before. And to the extent that you still notice any holding or bracing or unpleasant sensation, just be aware of it with tenderness. And then noticing the mind, the emotion, anything else that's present. Taking final breaths together here, allow your next breath to move softly in through the nose, softly out. Again, breathing softly in through the nose, softly out. Final breath, deep inhale through the nose. This time, exhale out of the mouth. Namaste. So give yourself a moment to kind of gather yourself and come back into our digital space as you're ready. And feel free to keep your cameras off. I will say that I am recording, but I have myself spotlit so that you won't be on the recording. Your voice will if you come off mute, but your image won't. So just notice how you feel, and maybe put some words in the chat of how you were feeling before with whatever stress level you came in at, and like how you're feeling now. Just in a word or a short phrase. Definitely so relaxed. Four to five, really felt the front and belly loosen up. Nice. Deb says rested. Yeah, we did about 30 to 40 minutes. Melissa says yawning, open, self-compassionate. Woo woo. And notice if this is something that you feel like you needed, Shannon says right hip relaxed and adjusted. Ooh, that's nice. Just a couple of closing thoughts here. I have found for people that struggle to kind of find the stillness and relax, that having the co-regulation of being guided through it is nice in the beginning, and always, but especially in the beginning as you're learning, how to place the props, what the position of the body is, what pace to move through the shapes. Melissa says, definitely something I needed, been dealing with so much sacrotuberous ligament pain. Sleep has been elusive, actually rested. Yeah, restorative is so great for when you can't sleep because it restores your body, not in the same way as sleep, but in a similar way as sleep. So this practice, it's called a practice. It's like building a muscle. You have to do it. And if you are in the camp of it's really difficult to get still and rest and relax and find ease, the encouragement that I have for you is that if you do it repeatedly and each time you do, it gets a little easier. Your nervous system begins to trust that it's actually safe, that rest feels good, that it's okay. And, in the beginning, you might notice things like you might sleep better tonight. So notice that. You might poop better. So maybe your elimination gets better. You might notice that you're less reactive whenever, stress is high, that you just have a better capacity for things in general. Over time, I can say from personal experience that just taking care of yourself in this way of allowing yourself to rest and experience ease will change your life, especially if you're like most of us in the West, where, we have this harried pace and like these stress levels of, 5, 6, 7 are normal. They're not actually normal, but they are for us in our culture. And that's, we there's a toll for that on the system over time.